Good evening. You're watching Just the News. I'm Amita Balachandra. Let's get straight to our top story. We're focusing on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It is day 5 after Russia invaded Ukraine. The delegations from the two countries have now begun peace talks. Now, the Ukrainian president's office earlier said that it wants an immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian forces. In the meantime, Russia wants to reach an agreement that was in the interest of both sides, according to the Russian negotiator. Meanwhile, in a video message, a Ukraine president urged EU to give Ukraine immediate membership. He said, and I quote, "Our goal is to be together with all Europeans and most importantly, to be on an equal footing. I'm sure it's fair. I'm sure it's possible." End quote. Now, to give you an update of what's really happening in Ukraine amid the peace talks, according to Ukraine's Interior Ministry advisor, dozens of people were killed and hundreds were wounded in rocket strikes by Russian forces on the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on Monday morning. Now, the United Nations earlier had said that 102 civilians, including 7 children, have been killed after Russia attacked Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine claims that at least 352 civilians, including 14 children, have been killed since the Russian invasion began, and this is data as of Sunday. Further, 1,684 people, including 116 children, according to Ukraine, have been wounded. Meanwhile, according to an Interfax report, Russian forces seized 2 small cities in southeastern Ukraine and the area around a nuclear power plant as well. Meanwhile, residents of Kyiv were free to leave the underground shelters they've been staying in as the weekend-long curfew was lifted today, according to a report by the BBC. Grocery stores will be allowed to open and public transport will start running, although subway trains will run much less often than usual. Now, this is India's situation and evacuation plan. It's called Operation Ganga. According to Indian Express, quoting government sources, said that India will send 4 union ministers to Ukraine's neighbouring countries to coordinate evacuation operations to bring back Indian students. Now, Madhabi Puri will head to Hungary. Jyotiraditya Scindia will go to Romania and Moldova. Kiran Rijiju to Slovakia and General V.K. Singh to Poland. The Indian embassy in Ukraine has issued a fresh advisory. It's tweeted today asking students to not exhibit aggressive behavior while at the railway stations. Now, the advisory said, and I quote, "We sincerely request all Indian nationals or students to remain calm, peaceful, and united. A large crowd can be expected at the railway stations. Therefore, it is advised that all Indian students remain patient, composed, and especially not to exhibit aggressive behavior while at the railway station." End quote. Now, Operation Ganga is what the government is calling it amidst several videos doing the rounds of students in Ukraine along the border saying that they're not getting enough help. According to the MEA, the 6th evacuation flight from Hungary's capital Budapest, carrying 240 Indian nationals who are stranded in Ukraine, landed at the Delhi airport today. Union Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi welcomed the Indian nationals at the airport. MEA went on to say, and I quote, "We have a new route through Moldova. It's operational now. Our teams will assist you. They will assist in the evacuation of Indians to Romania." End quote. Now, the Health Ministry has also revised its international travel advisory for Indian students from Ukraine. It has made exemptions for the mandatory pre-boarding negative RT-PCR test and vaccination certificate. Now, it's also exempted uploading documents before departure on Air Suvidha portal. Meanwhile, for the second time in a week, India has abstained from voting, this time on the resolution to call for UN body session on Ukraine. Russia has, of course, voted against the resolution. India, China, and the UAE abstained. Now, the resolution was adopted with 11 votes in favor. Now, this comes 2 days after the Russian veto blocked a UNSC resolution on its aggression against Ukraine. Now, here are the global sanctions on Russia, and several nations have increased those sanctions and imposed fresh sanctions as well. We'll start off with what Russia is saying to all of this. In a press conference, Kremlin spokesperson has said that Russia planned to ride out sanctions imposed by Western countries that have sent the ruble tumbling. Now, the spokesperson said, and I quote, "The Western sanctions on Russia are hard, but our country has the necessary potential to compensate for the damage," end quote. He also added that, and I quote, "Today, Putin will be working on economic questions and meeting key ministers, including the finance minister and central bank governor," end quote. Now, this comes after the UK, along with the US and EU, have cut off Russia's banks from financial markets in the West, stopping dealings with the central bank, state-owned investment funds, and the finance ministry. Also, Russia has announced that it is banning flights from airlines in 36 countries, including the UK, Germany, Spain, Italy, and Canada. Now, it follows a decision by the EU to ban Russian-owned, Russian-registered, or Russian-controlled aircraft from its airspace. Now, in reaction to all of this, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered his defense chiefs to put the country's nuclear deterrence forces, I beg your pardon, on high alert on Sunday. Now, Russia has the world's largest arsenal of nuclear weapons and a huge cache of ballistic missiles as well. He also accused the West of taking unfriendly steps against Russia. Now, here are the further sanctions that have, several nations have imposed, starting off with United Kingdom. United Kingdom's Prime Minister has tweeted today, and I quote, "We have further isolated Russia from the international financial system this morning. Working with our partners and the G7, we are determined to impose the most severe economic measures possible against Putin for his abhorrent campaign against Ukraine. Putin must fail," end quote. Now, Ukraine's foreign minister has taken to Twitter today to urge countries to cut all business ties with Russia and dubbed Putin as the, and I quote, "Hitler of the 21st century." This is what the foreign minister tweeted, and I quote, "Cut all business ties with Russia, all of them. Making business with Russia today means financing aggression, war crimes, disinformation, cyber attacks, and personally the Hitler of the 21st century named Vladimir Putin," end quote. Now, as far as the evacuation and the number of people who have fled Ukraine are concerned, the UN spokesperson has said that around 4.22 lakh people have fled from Ukraine to neighbouring countries. Now, over 1 lakh people are now displaced within Ukraine. In the meantime, according to UN, at least 102 civilians have been killed. That number is far higher, according to Ukraine itself. Now, Ukraine has also claimed that more than 5,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in the first 4 days of fighting in Ukraine. Now, in a statement posted on Facebook, Ukrainian officials said approximately 5,300 Russian troops have been killed and claimed that 191 tanks, 29 fighter jets, 29 helicopters, and 816 armored personnel carriers have been destroyed by Ukraine's forces. And this is the report according to the BBC. Now, there are protests that have erupted across different nations, starting off with Washington, D.C., where several people, including Ukrainians, have taken to the streets in front of the White House to show their solidarity to Ukraine. In the protests, there were Ukrainian flags, prayers, and slogans that were chanted as well. In the meantime, Latvian Parliament today voted unanimously to allow nationals to volunteer to fight in Ukraine if willing. So this was a voluntary thing. This comes after Latvia shut its airspace to Russian planes. Now, we move on from this big story and we continue to bring you updates on the story as and when it develops, but we now focus on COVID. According to the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, the suspension of scheduled international passenger flights in the country has been extended till further orders. It was earlier extended till the 28th of February. In other news right now, starting off with the hijab controversy, according to Indian Express, 3 students were allegedly denied entry in government PU college in Karnataka's Udupi to attend practical examinations on Monday with hijab. Now, one of the students told the Indian Express, and I quote, the practical examination, including internals, is for 30 marks, and the written examination will be for 70 marks. If we don't attend practicals, it means we will be ineligible to attend the written examinations, end quote. Now, the High Court's verdict on a batch of petitions filed by students from government PU colleges in Udupi over restrictions on wearing the hijab in classrooms is currently pending. On to politics right now, starting off with Manipur elections. According to the chief election officer, 78.03% voter turnout was recorded in the first phase of the assembly polls in Manipur as of 5 p.m. today. In the meantime, there were incidents of violence also reported. According to the Indian Express, at least one person was injured in a clash between 2 parties in one of the districts. An EVM was damaged and it was later replaced. In the meantime, according to TOI, 53.93% polling was recorded till 5 p.m. on Sunday in the 5th phase of the Uttar Pradesh Assembly polls. Now, there are a total of 7 phases of UP polls. Vote counting will take place on the 10th of March. On to business news right now. According to data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Domestic Product, India's gross domestic product for the October-December quarter, which is Q3, grew by 5.4%, while the GDP for the entire financial year 21-22 is seen growing at 8.9%. Now, this is according to the second advanced and quarterly estimates of GDP. Also in the news, Amul has hiked the milk price by 2 rupees per litre, and it will be effective from tomorrow, which is the 1st of March 2022. Last time it was hiked by 2 rupees per litre on June 2021. On to environment news. Now, this is an extremely important report by the IPCC, which has been released, and this is the second part of the report. The first part of the report was released in August last year. According to this report, which is by the IPCC, or Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the adverse impacts of climate change are far greater, more frequent, and vastly more disruptive than previously understood. Now, I'll tell you what the first part briefly said. The first part of the report that was released last year said and warned that 1.5 degrees Celsius warming was likely to be achieved before 2040 itself. Now, this latest report warns that multiple disasters induced by climate change are likely to emerge in different parts of the world in the next 2 decades, even if adequate efforts are made to keep the global rise in temperatures within 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial limits. Additionally, the report says, and this is quite alarming, many of the impacts of global warming are now simply irreversible. On to sports news right now. Tokyo Olympic silver medalist wrestler Ravi Dahiya defeated Uzbekistan's contender 11-10 in the 61 kg final to win gold in the Yasar Dogu ranking series in Istanbul. On the other hand, wrestlers Deepak Punia, Aman Gulla and Gyanendra Malla secured bronze medals. And one more piece of good news before we wrap things up here on this bulletin, and this is a big news. Madhabi Puri Buch has been appointed as the first ever woman chairperson of SEBI. She was not only SEBI's first woman whole-time member, but also the first person working at SEBI from the private sector. She has been appointed for a 3-year term. And I am Ahmedabad alumna. Buch started her career with ICICI Bank. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.